that one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
For many executive sessions, none at all. For public comment, today's Lily's birthday. Birthday. Public comment.
Morning, Jeff. Morning.
Alderman Byrne.
Very good. All right. The normal, no Stevens paperwork, Miss Gaffney with her FMLA. And then the new one that's going to be every week is the hiring without vetting. Did anyone obtain the third-party firm's report on the gentleman that was hired for the job over $60,000 a year plus salary or plus benefits? Assuming that's going to be a personnel matter that the taxpayers won't ever find out about, but deserve to know. Again, Mr. Bender, Mr. Mayhall, the HR director, they were all here last week and refused to comment on that. Miss Gaffney was here. Again, shockingly, she refused to comment on her FMLA claims and why she lied to the public. So again, just hopefully the taxpayers remember all that, what's going on up here behind closed doors and all the shady activity. On the agenda today, oh, by the way, there was 8 elected officials. I don't want to be targeting or harassing anyone, so there was 8 elected officials at 9:30 this morning, not in the building. Just want to make note of that. According to the agenda that was posted yesterday, there was budget and village information that was going to be posted online. As of last night, when I looked, none of it was able to be found online, unless it's another scavenger hunt. So hopefully that stuff's going to be bullet pointed on the front, or it was added late.
Jeff, I just asked, and last year they didn't post. They didn't post it last year either, so it'll be posted after, once it's approved today, it'll all be posted.
Okay. So,
because it's only preliminary.
okay.
So there was a miscommunication, like it's gonna be posted after this meeting, like after today.
Okay, so the public
will be able to see that today.
after it's approved.
Yeah, as soon as it's approved after this, it'll be.
Okay, so they can't comment on it or look at
The
it.
preliminary budget.
This is the preliminary.
This is the preliminary.
Okay.
You'll be able to comment then after.
Okay. Okay. That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Any other public comment? Thank you. No, go ahead. It will take long. It will take long.
Back to the buffet, you know.
She's back. Oh, Melinda Diver, North Manheim Township. Good morning.
Morning.
Okay. One thing I would like to hit on, and maybe Tim, this probably won't be in anything he's going to say, but glad that the reassessment is under our belts for the most part. I would highly recommend that some type of training course be put in place in the future, and even for next year, if it seems like a lot of homeowners, property owners are going to be submitting appeals next year. There needs to be a training course for your auxiliary board members. I believe we did the best that we could with what we were given, and everyone did a very nice job, I will say. But there was information that if we had it from the get-go, or even a couple of weeks before all of the appeals started, we could have hit the floor running. And instead, we were kind of feeling things out, probably till the very end. We were still, depending upon the situations that we were hit with, some mock appeals would have been nice if we could have done those in advance to kind of be prepared for new and different situations that we were faced with. But overall, yep, everybody did a great job. The girls in tax assessment, being led by Chrissy Zimmerman, did an awesome job. Chrissy and every single girl in that office did an awesome job. They gave up vacations. They were not really able to take time off as they would have wanted to, but they were there day in and day out. One thing I might recommend when you go to start looking at the budget, instead of fixating on your union salaries and union employees, who are, for the most part, when they're hired, making what, $12 or $13 an hour. Instead, look at some of your management employees, your exempt employees, because I can guarantee you, when they walk in the door making 75 or 80,000 right off the bat, the budget is going to take a bigger hit on those salaries than the $12 and $13 an hour people. So the training course definitely needs to be done. So like I said, even if we put together more auxiliary boards,
For next year.
yep,
You're planning, Chrissy, what, one auxiliary board for next year or no?
It's gonna depend on how many start coming in on January.
On how many appeals?
Yeah, I mean, if they start piling up, we're gonna start them in like maybe April. And it'll be, of course, the commercial board would be in first, and then auxiliary boards, and then I'll just keep going how many boards I need after that.
Okay.
I'm actually kind of surprised that something like that hasn't already been in place. It seems like countywide reassessments are becoming very popular in the Commonwealth. So,
To say the least, if you see Lackawanna County.
but I think, you know, a core group of people who served on the appeals board would probably be willing to step up to the plate and help out with that. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment before Tim Barr goes?
42.
Okay, we'll let Tim go.
This might be the last time you see me.
You celebrate now?
Later. All right, Tim Barr, I'm an executive director with Vision Government Solutions. After 3 years, the reassessment process has finally come to conclusion with the certification on Monday by the assessment office of the new values. So that concludes the requirements of the court stipulation in terms of making this in effect for next year's taxes. Beyond the law, the commissioners have asked Chrissy and I to calculate break-even worksheets, millage equalization worksheets, which we completed yesterday, and plan to put them on the website. Anybody can look at them, but they went out to the taxing bodies yesterday. They're pretty simple. They look like this. So, for example, at the county level, I'll just get a few highlights. The new value of the county after the 20,000 per parcel homestead exclusion is $13.9 billion. That's the value of the county. When you look at the old value, it was $1.7 billion. The county has a budget of about $52 million a year levied against real estate taxes that are not county held. Properties that are still controlled by the property owner, they're not in the county held bucket, that's a whole other thing. Looking at those, which is the typical levy, the number's around $52 million before the reassessment. It's around $52 million after the reassessment. There are still about 850 properties that got recent maintenance that could appeal their values. The deadline for that are in December. There are still common pleas that could alter this, but we don't know. Those are speculative. So based on what we know today, which is with 100% of the formal appeals settled, resolved, and mailed, all county maintenance up through last week, done and mailed. I think I said this last week, Caitlin Cole in the assessment office and Chrissy and the staff really pulled out all the stops to enroll over 600 new clean and green properties. And getting that in to the numbers so that all of that is baked into a estimated break-even millage rate going from 19.23 to an estimate, this is my calculation, of 3.729. That produces the same $52 million it did before. Take 10% of that, you get 4.1 and change. which could be done with a second vote. The commissioners, the taxing bodies have all been told, keep in mind, you will lose some to straggler appeals and common pleas between now and when the bills are cut next year. So, but off the top, the break even is 3.729. Now, I took that information because everybody likes to know what the tax impact is going to be. Are your taxes going up or are they going down? So I calculated those break-even millage rates, and we can put this on the website too. This is a spreadsheet where a property owner can take whatever their value is, Clean and Green or market, and it'll tell them what the combined county, municipal, and school millage is likely to be, assuming everybody just used my numbers. Now, that's not the case. Each taxing body is responsible for their own budget and millage. But in terms of giving people a good estimate now, this allows folks to calculate post appeals. How close is it to what Tim Barr estimated? I will say that from a county millage standpoint, we came in about 3% less than I forecast. There was a little bit less appeal reductions than I anticipated, and that's even with the homesteads being factored in. So the county was low. Some municipalities are higher, some are lower than my original estimates, but basically these are new estimates for next year that someone can calculate. So if I have an old millage and an old homestead for school, and I have a new millage and a new homestead for school, and a 20,000 homestead for the county, I can calculate a bill. So I did that on 85,000 parcels. I calculated in the computer pseudo bills. And then I can take the new tax minus the old tax and see how much money we're talking about. So some of you saw this during the public meetings. This is the little thing that shows the bell curve. 38% of the properties in this county, parcel count, not money. Money's balanced. The law requires the money to always be revenue neutral. Parcel count. 38% of the parcels are within $200 of what they paid before. That includes the county, the municipal, and the school bill. They are within $200 of where they were. Not exactly, when we talk about the third rule, it's never exactly 33%. The idea is there's people that are going to pay more and people that are going to pay less. 38% are in the middle category of plus or minus $200. 36% are getting an increase of more than $200, and 26% of the parcel count are getting a decrease of more than $200. The reason that the percentage is less on the decreases is because the amount of the decreases is more dramatic. Those 600 people that signed up for Clean and Green, that's a huge reduction for them. So those parcels come down significantly. The bigger the dollars have to balance. So there's fewer parcels on this side of the teeter-totter, but the money is balanced on the teeter-totter. One last thing, about 3% of the parcels ended up in the wings. About 3% of the taxable parcels are paying over $1,800 more post reassessment than they did before. And 3%, 2,319 by my count, are going to pay more than $1,800 a year less as a result of the reassessment. They were overpaying by more than $1,800. So that's the most extreme shifts, and that's the tail of the graph. So we're going to go over some of this afternoon, finalize the documents, and make those things available. So we've got tax-based worksheets, we have millage estimates, and we have a tax impact. One last thing, we're talk about the formal appeals. 7,405 parcels filed for appeals. They heard 6,511 appeals. 88% of the ones that filed actually had hearings. So those are the ones that could have gone to common pleas, by the way. The others were withdrawals or settled, or they just didn't show up. They can't take those to common pleas. But although that's less, we talked about there being anywhere from 8,000 to 15,000 formal appeals. Thank goodness there weren't, because it was all hands on deck to get through what we did get. But those 7,400 appeals all got their chance to present information at a hearing. And their opinion of value, their evidence, and there were a lot of corrections and changes that were made accordingly. Any questions?
Are all the new values now up online?
Yes, as of this Monday morning, all the new values, certified values, are available through the CamaCard website link, either my website or by going through the county GIS. Same place, they're down at the bottom, where you can see the current 25 value, and you can see the latest and greatest final values post appeals.
No, you said you just sent out the tax equalization sheet for municipalities.
Yes,
There was a municipality yesterday that set their tax rate already. They set it at 2.5 mils. I don't know
Well-
how they did that.
well,
I had one do it a week before this, and I told them we're not accepting it because you can't.
Well, they said they got the information. And they figured, but it didn't.
well, we've had
Doesn't
meetings.
sound right when I thought.
I think I've had a half a dozen meetings with school officials and at least 3 or 4 with municipal officials. They've got a budget process. They've got to set a budget. The county has to set a budget. I think there's things on the agenda today where you got to do some preliminary budget. We've certified the numbers, but nobody had these numbers until yesterday. Well, they didn't have the equalization until yesterday. They had the millages or the values by Monday. They got to publish something. And basically, if they adopted a millage without waiting for this, and it's more than 10%, it's more than what the math allows them to do, they'll have to reopen their budget and fix the millage. I always say this though, when taxing bodies set the budget, it's not about the millage in a reassessment year. It can't be. It's got to be about the money. It's got to be about the $52 million. If you needed more than $52 million, you're going to have to do a second vote to increase it. The money, the millage you don't until now. So that's the basis of that. And there's a risk to this. I'm not an attorney. The county has no legal responsibility to set millage for a township or a borough or a city. But by publishing this, we're making it obvious to the public, to the press, to the taxing bodies, how the math works. So if they're going to deviate significantly from the standard way of doing this, they better have a pretty good explanation of where and why. The county couldn't set a millage of 6 mils. The evidence wouldn't support that. They could go up to 4.1 by my calculations, but they couldn't arbitrarily pick a number. Because the windfall protection law, section 8823 of assessment law says, same amount of money based on the pre-existing parcels. So that happens. We do this in part, I recommend doing this, so I'll take the heat if people don't like it, I guess. But it's designed to help people go through the math. And one thing I've offered this, I'll say it publicly though, in case any of the taxing bodies are listening. We could do some Teams meetings next week for groups, either one at a time in sequence, and Chrissy can try to schedule them, or your office, where I'll just camp on the computer for 4 hours and talk to one taxing body after another if they have questions, or we can do it as a group thing. I want to help everybody finish this. Although the reassessment is done and Vision's work is done, I've promised that I will be here until your bills go out next year to make sure that I'm here to help you, not just with software support, but making sure that we get the tax bills over the finish line. Which, by the way, I confirmed this morning, the new reassessment values are already loaded into the billing system. They're already on the county's billing website for next year's prep. There will be changes that the assessment is making between now and January when those bills are calculated. But this is all, the minute we finished the certification, it was immediately loaded into the IT's software. And due to the exceptional work by that office, Joanne and Connor prepping for that, and the testing that we all did in advance, it took us a day to bring them up to speed with the new values. Other questions?
Just a comment, a question on this, maybe for Belinda. You weren't here for the last couple of weeks, but I told Jeffrey that I had conversation with several legislators, a bunch of department heads, several attorneys, and everyone praised the way they were treated, the way the billboards were run. Not one complaint, once that 30 or 40 different people tell me that they were, now, they didn't always like the result when it's done, but the fact that the billboards treated them with respect, answered their questions, they went in sometimes a little bit nervous, concerned, but I can't tell you how proud I was to hear that the appeal boards did a great job. So I want you to hear that correctly from me. So
Okay, thank you.
A lot, that's the comments that we got for how well it was handled down there and how well our, Chrissy staff did, the appeals boards did. But we can't forget, we gotta get Harrisburg to fix this problem. And they gotta come up with alternate sources of revenue for counties other than property tax. So we cannot, we got through the reassessment, but we can't stop pushing Harrisburg to come up with something different for counties and fix the reassessment problem. We can't, if we get through this, I'm not gonna forget about it. We're going down to CCAP and I'm gonna say, we got through our reassessment, but it still needs to be fixed.
Right.
And we need alternate sources of revenue other than taxing people's property.
You tell them that we got approved reassessment. Make sure they know it's by the skin of our teeth with the employees, because I'm gonna tell you, the 9 people that we have over there, I don't know if we can do it again. Cause it was so much extra work beyond the normal 8:30 to 4:30 days.
Well, in part, but while I'm on the soapbox, two things. I want to build on what Larry said and also what Chrissy said. First of all, the tax reform part of this has 2 components. Number one, they need to reduce the burden on real estate tax, not necessarily eliminate it, because it does give stability. But there shouldn't be so much of our funding dependent upon real estate tax, whether they increase the sales tax or income or how, they got to figure that out, and that's why it's never happened. Reduce the burden. It's not elimination necessarily, it's reducing the burden. The second thing is, it shouldn't be 30 years between them. I'm parroting things that you all 3 said. What made this so hard, what required you to hire a vendor and spend millions of dollars hiring people to go out and knock on every door, is because it had been 30 years. So if the county were to fully staff the assessment office, because there's shortages in that office right now, they have the software, they have the knowledge now to maintain the data, to visit the properties, to follow the new rules, to track and validate sales more aggressively than was done before. And they have a more solid base. But you know what? It's not perfect. There's still things we find about the data that can be better. There are tools that the county can look at, including aerial imagery, where you can compare from the sky the sketch that we took against new pictures every once in a while and find out if someone tore a building down or built one up that they didn't get a permit. And you don't even have to necessarily go out unless you detect that something was done. So there's more cost-effective ways to do this. So the second part we want to see Harrisburg do is provide tools to do regular reassessments on a 4 to 6 year cycle, and ideally provides grants or funding to help subsidize it, so that especially counties get caught up and then can maintain it. You have the tools to maintain this, that you do not need a vendor to come in and do what we had to do this time. You've got our software. We're going to be here to support that forever, as long as you pay the bill every year for the maintenance fees. If you need us to come back and help study the sales or do public meetings, I've had multiple counties that have done 2, 3 reassessments in a cycle, and the follow-up ones are cheap by comparison, because it's just analysts. It's not boots on the ground. It's not 9 appeal boards. It's not the level, Vision, for lack of a better word, volunteered 3 of our senior staff for unlimited hours for the duration of this reassessment. I have to figure out what that cost us, but it doesn't cost you anything because we agreed to do it and my bosses agreed to do it. But Charlie Kachula, Craig Harder, and Jennifer Pasasic put long hours in, just like the assessment office did, as did I. And none of that's all extra. We're not billing the county $1 extra for any of it. We wanted it to be successful, and you're right, it felt like it was the skin of our teeth quite often, the amount of work. Unfortunately, it's normally like that when it's been 20, 30 years between rebounds. So I want to encourage the county, may seem premature, let's get through the holidays. But after the first of the year, start thinking about fully staffing the assessment office and what could they do to prepare for a potential future reassessment, 90% in-house. And to make adjustments, not just for data that changes that you don't always know about, permits and things, non-permits, but the market's gonna change. What's gonna happen after we get another election cycle and after everything else that changes? What's the real estate market doing? Is it gonna continue to go up? Or are we gonna see more affordable housing? Reassessment values must be based upon sales that have actually occurred. If the market changes direction, then the sales will be different. And instead of, if the market goes down and every property owner starts appealing, you're gonna get only the people that appealed getting reductions. And it's not reductions. The people that are paying $1,800 too much, they might not appeal, they don't know. And if the market goes the other direction, your school districts are gonna wanna come in like they did before and do spot appeals to try to recover the money that they see happening in the market. The way you prevent all of that is having a maintenance plan, doing it on a regular basis. So that isn't to sell you anything. It's just, I've been doing it 40 years. This is the way to make it right. And hopefully Harrisburg is closer to listening than they have been.
I hope so. I hope they realize the burden that's put on the counties, even with their budget impacts and everything. Our hands are tied. And it's not, and I know I said this before. If they tax skill machines, instead of letting it stay here in the county, it goes to Harrisburg. It doesn't come back to us. It goes, so just disappears into Blackpool, Harrisburg. Anything that they do. You know, it just goes, they gotta let counties be able to do this. And let us keep money here instead of it being funneled back to us from Harrisburg. It's almost like they take their skim off of it and then they go, well, here's your dollar back. You know, when we should have a couple $100,000 or $1 million back. So, you know, they gotta, and there's easy solutions. I don't think it's hard. Sales tax, earned income tax. You know, you're not gonna get property tax elimination completely. What you could do like down south, where they have a base property tax in some areas. That's minimal, and then they fund it all through sales tax. That's the rest of the government.
The third one, Larry, that's been discussed is a flat benefits tax, where if you live in the county, you pay $50. Some flat amount, if you're a resident of the county, a renter, owner, whatever. The catch is you gotta have a role, you gotta know who they are. But a flat benefits tax means everybody pays a constant, it's gotta be a low enough number that everybody can afford it for it to work. But I was involved in studies that were done 10 years ago. We figured we could eliminate half of all real estate taxes, county, municipal, and school, with a $50 flat benefits tax at the time. Again, the catch is, who are they? And by the way, if you did that, the legislature did that, you'd say anybody under 18 doesn't pay and anybody over 65 doesn't. You make whatever rules you want about it. But they've got to change
The laws that we can do it.
the laws.
They don't, Harrisburg does not allow us to do it, so.
You guys don't have the
We don't
authority.
have-
to do
I
it.
have a point to about the flood reassessment, that's a hard situation, because that. If we do this legislation, schools have to stop being able to do that. Right, Eric?
They shouldn't, I told them, they shouldn't need spot appeals anymore. We raised the value on ones that needed raised and we lowered the value on ones that were too high. So we now have uniformity. I didn't mention it today, but it's on the county website, the study that was done back in June. It shows statistically the values met the market. If there's not, if the market is X and the values are close to X, with a 15% variance around that, there's no reason for taxing bodies to do spot appeals. So for a few years, hopefully that won't be necessary.
Well, that's, Glenn and I were just talking about this yesterday, about trying to figure out, to get from Harrisburg to revenue, how much sales tax is re-emitted from Schuylkill County alone. And then figure what a 1.5% sales tax would actually do. figure out what total is reimbursed for Schuylkill County on sales tax. Then just do the math and figure out what 1.5% would mean to the county.
And by the way, this is, I'm throwing this out in response without having talked to anybody in advance. You're not allowed, you've done a $20,000 homestead exclusion. You cannot raise your, whatever millage you set, you can't raise it to make that number bigger.
No.
But if you find another source of revenue that you can reduce the levy on real estate, you could give it with a reduced millage or an increased homestead, which targets the savings to the residents who actually live here in the county, homestead properties. The advantage of that $20,000 homestead exclusion, and the schools do it too, is it is targeted at the people that are residents of the county. You must live in Schuylkill County as your primary residence, not vacationers, not commercials, to get a homestead exclusion. It also is very progressive. If you live in a $20,000 mobile home, you save the most. County exclusion is about $75 is what it equates to. Somebody in a less expensive home will get more of the 75. Somebody that's in $1 million home, it becomes a wash. The 75 is offset by the way that the math and millages work out. So it helps the lowest I want to say the lowest income, because we don't know. The lowest valued properties are helped by a homestead exclusion. So it's very progressive.
Your citizens.
Yep.
Assuming they're not in $1 million homes, exactly. That it's not, we don't know their age and we don't know their income, but we do know what the value of their houses are. And I can tell you mathematically, 20%, $20,000 on a $100,000 property is how much savings? 20%. It's 40% on a $50,000 house. On a $1 million house, it's 5%. On a $10 million house, it's, you get the math. The savings is targeted towards the lower valued properties.
Does anybody have any other questions for Tim?
Do we know how many, currently, how many people have actually filed appeals with the Court of Common Pleas?
It's not that high a number. Do you know that yet?
First batch was 100.
It's, I would say right now it's about 150.
It's not 150, so that's,
And that's a fluid number. I mean, I get 2 or 3 every day, so but
it's still.
Yeah.
We were figuring 8%
The last
appeals to Court of Common Pleas.
The last decision orders were mailed Monday or Friday. The deadline for those is the 23rd, I think, of December with common.
and the prior ones were October 20th, correct?
Yes, I think most of them went out, and there's a large batch that went out in October, and. I don't
September
know
16th was the first one.
The
You had told me, David, the first batch was 109.
1,310 were mailed on November 13th, which have a deadline. Actually, it's December 15th, I think. It's not the Christmas. So by mid-December, the deadline for common pleas appeals will have ended, except maybe at some of those 850 that we just did notices, but they won't get to go to common pleas. They'll get to go to the regular board next year. But any correction on those 850 will be retroactive to January 1st. And again, these are things you want to keep in mind. There's going to be a second, from a budget standpoint. I got a lot of finance people in the room and people online. From a budget standpoint, things that immediately hit your 26, which is pretty much potentially those 850 in common pleas. Those are the only ones that are retroactive to 26. The second thing to keep in mind is there's going to be another wave of appeals next year. You've prepped for maybe having more auxiliaries if you needed to. If they haven't already had the training from the state, they'll need the training from the state. Anybody new? Those are for 27. Anyone that appeals next year with an annual appeal has to pay their 26 taxes based on the results of the reassessment, unless they went the common pleas route. So any appeals next year in 26 would be for reductions in 27. So that you'll have to consider what happened next year. Did you lose much tax base? You have to raise millage just to keep your revenue even. All right, thank you, and apologies to the folks that have to transcribe all of this.
You have anything you want to say, Gary? Okay, let's move on to meeting, grant writers.
Morning, Commissioners. Today I have 4 motions. First is approval of change order number 1 for a negative $283.60 to a CDBG contract with Ronnie C. Folk Paving Incorporated. This will decrease the contract from $100,070 to $99,786.40. This is due to a decrease of quantities. The CDBG funding will remain at $53,926.72. The Tamaqua funding will now be $45,859.68. The second is approval of change orders 1 and 2. The first is for $9,343.75, and the second is for $1,400. This is for a CDBG contract with M&J Excavation. This will increase the contract from $99,965 to $110,708.75. The first is due to additional quantities needed in the street rehab project of Jardin Street. The second is for Market Street. These will be funded by the Borough of Shenandoah. Next, approval to advertise for a public hearing for a modification to the 2024 CDBG program on behalf of the Borough of Shenandoah. The hearing will take place on Tuesday, December 9th, 2025 in the Commissioners Boardroom at 10 a.m. And finally, approval to advertise for demo projects in the boroughs of Gilberton, Mahoney City, and Shenandoah. Bids will be due in the Controller's office on Monday, December 15th at 4 p.m. The bid opening will take place December 17th at 9 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Wallen,
Morning. I have a request for approval of a renewal of the multi-year print agreement between the county and LexisNexis for a 3-year period commencing November 1st, 2025 and ending October 31st, 2028. The agreement covers updates to print material already purchased from LexisNexis, but will limit the amount of increase to 6% per year for the material currently under the service subscription, with the initial amount of $19,898, and also provide a 5% discount for non-service subscriptions with an initial estimated amount of $27,031. Thank you.
President, the board would make it so.
Okay, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Center County Correctional Facility in Belmont, PA at a rate of $75 per day per tenant. County inmate for a term of January 1st, 2026, December 31st, 2026, the possibility of extension no longer than 2 consecutive years.
Thank you. 901.
Good morning, Commissioner. Approval to the grant application for an LSA with the Commonwealth, the amount of $985,500 to enhance the public safety communications. That's for the microwave system on the eastern part of the county. We did the western part previous years, and looking for approval for that.
Make that motion, sir.
Second, on the question?
Commissioner Fedora,
Yes.
Commissioner Heatherington,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. President Underwood?
John Reed, Drug and Alcohol. I just want to point out there was an error on the agenda. Agenda states we have 3 items. We actually only have 2. The second item is actually a continuation of the first one. So with that being said, we're requesting the BOC approve the following contract and addendum. The contract is with Center for Community Resources Incorporated for the period of September 1st, 2025 and June 30th, 2026 to provide recovery support services at our Schuylkill County Recovery Center with a contract cap of $197,340. And the second item is an addendum to Eagleville Hospital contract to increase the contract cap from $50,000 to $54,000 for fiscal year 25-26.
Thank you. Human Services Block Grant Programs.
Morning. I have a recommendation that the Board of Commissioners approves a lease agreement with the Pottsville Parking Authority for 112 parking permits at the Capitol Parking Garage and 14 parking permits below the 200 block Floral Boulevard. For the period January first, 2026 through December 31st, 2026. For employees located at the Human Services Complex and the Children and Youth Building, including MIS. The cost of each permit is $41.90 per month for a total contract cost of $63,352.80.
We would come all and try to negotiate a better price or money.
They didn't increase at all. This is the first time they haven't increased in a while. So,
So there was no, that's what was gonna be my, I know that you increased over the past number of years.
but they did not increase for us. They kept ours the same.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Clerk's office,
Good morning, Commissioners. So the treasurer's report for October 2025, ending balance in all accounts, $91,483,338.46. And then just one other additional comment. When Tim talks about the benefit services tax, we in the treasurer's office help oversee $5 per capita tax, which is based on the research that we did in the treasurer's office, bound by statute from 1967. So 60 years ago, they said collect $5 a person. And so if Harrisburg could do something about that and take that challenge back to Harrisburg, that would be appreciated. It costs us more money to collect and oversee $5 than it's worth, but yeah.
We did ask that question to CCAP.
and they can't.
The Senator Scott just said, was on that committee and refused to bring it up for a vote, so I know Scott, I'm working on it, say, is this at 5 months? In fact, a lot of counties stopped collecting it.
Right, some counties don't even collect it because it's.
And once
more
again, if
aggregation,
you
right.
rent a mobile home or you rent a modular, you don't pay any property tax, so there has to be some help from the people who don't, I mean, I understand supposedly the owner of the property pays his rent, but once again, a lot of people live here that aren't chipping in at all, so.
If they would allow you to convert the $5 to a $50, then it would be worthwhile, and you already have a role. That's the basis, the quality of that role may not be, might benefit from improvements.
We asked for 20, we got told not to
No,
have.
not allowed to do it.
Right, yeah, going from 5 to 20 would have made a pretty big difference with
1.6 million
finance,
dollars.
but no, you can't do it.
But they might agree to it if it's part of a village deduction requirement.
And also part of, just making sure schools don't process, all part of that package.
Solicitor's office. Nothing,
Nothing.
county administration,
On behalf of the coroner's office, approve a contract with Forensic Pathology Associates of Allentown, PA, autopsy service for the coroner's office. Contract term of January 1st, 2026, December 31st, 2026. And on behalf of the School County Housing Authority, approval of reappointment of Edward Winklebar of Orangeburg, PA, to the School County Housing Authority Board for a 5-year term beginning January 1st, 2026, December 31st, 2030.
finance office.
Good morning, Commissioners. We have 5 items for budget adjustment. First is for children and youth for $1,678 on a full camera. Second one is for $3,319 on solid waste management. 90% of that is our 901 grant, or 901 grant. $10,300 is to cover a budgetary adjustment for the recent general election to ensure proper payments there. $12,000 from the courts, that is for interpreter services. And then the last one is $15,000 from Public Works, and that is for ensure proper budgetary authority to cover icing and snow removal remainder of the year. The next item on the agenda is the preliminary budget for 2026, and if I may have your indulgence for a minute on this, I would like to thank all of the departments. I would like to thank the county administrator, all of the financial staff, certainly Mr. Kern in my office, the 3 of you, treasurer and the controller. All of you have worked very hard. This is my first year with the county. It's a monumental task, especially with the challenges that were proposed to us because of the budget impact in Harrisburg. There's a lot of moving parts at different times. And I appreciate everybody's support and effort to ensure that we pass a valued and accurate preliminary budget. Again, to address Mr. Knuckles' concern and the public's, this is a preliminary document. This document is not final until you vote on it on the 17th of December. After you approve this today, if you should approve it, it will go into the office. It will be available at 3 p.m. on Friday and will be available through until the 17th of December for inspection by the public. It will also be posted on the website accordingly. So we do appreciate it. I will say that we began this process with over $19 million in excess of what we were able to support. And through the efforts of the department heads, through the efforts of others, we were able to reduce that budget $7.5 million. That we are now looking at $11,500,000 roughly in a shortfall. And when I say that, what I mean is we're going to have to look at the unassigned funds. Majority of that comes from a 13.9% increase in the healthcare costs, which amount to $2.8 million. An increase in projected costs from the real estate appeals over the 2024 baseline. Because of this, the county finance office is recommending that we freeze all hiring of new employees, reduce all travel except where it is mandatory for certification or training, that you continue the efforts that you have put forth previously to eliminate or consolidate positions. We consider outsourcing some of our operational functions where it could cause savings for us, and look at an initiated increased fee for certain services. And at this time, the budget presentation is as such. To establish the proposed, this is resolution 111925. To establish the proposed 2026 estimated real estate millage at 4.101, that was referred to earlier, with 3.974 mils of that to be allotted to the general fund, which equates to 39.74 cents on each $100 of assessed value, and 0.127 mils of the 2026 funded debt account, which equates to 1.27 cents on each $100 of assessed value. And to establish proposed 2026 per capita tax at $5. Next item, to adopt the 2026 preliminary budget for the general fund with proposed legislative authorization to expend public funds for the office department's functions within the established budget parameters and an aggregate expenditure limit of $85,548,365 be offset by $73,996,634 in revenue from real estate taxes, supplemented by approximately $11,551,731 from the general fund unassigned balance. To adopt the 2026 preliminary budget for the funded debt account with proposed legislative authorization to expend those funds in an amount of $2,441,946 for debt service, be offset by the projected revenue plus the carryover restricted fund balance of $2,441,946. To adopt the 2026 preliminary budget for the internal service fund, workers' compensation with proposed legislative authorization to expend public funds for the workers' compensation claims and administrative expenses with an established budget parameter and an aggregate expenditure limit of $475,000, and to be offset by projected revenue of $475,000. To adopt the 2026 preliminary budget for certain special revenue funds and accounts with proposed legislative authorization to expend public funds for the office and department functions so established within the budget parameters and to be offset by projected revenues or projected revenues plus the carryover of restricted fund balances as follows for local use funds, liquid fuel, demolition, farmland preservation, the human services complex, 911, other agency funds, the Office of Senior Services, drug and alcohol, mental health, children and youth, and domestic relations as indicated in your packet and will be available as indicated to the public in the packet. And to adopt the preliminary 2026 budget for other special revenue fund accounts with proposed legislative authorization to expend the public funds for special programs to include aging advisory, offender supervision, SCPG, affordable housing, coal lands, DUI, other escrow, conduit, Eagle County Transportation Authority, the Mansella Shale, the Emergency Solutions Grant, within the established parameters and an aggregate expenditure limit of $11,492,019, be offset by the projected revenue plus the carryover restricted fund balance of $11,492,019.
the healthcare, we started at what, 16.1?
Yep.
Healthcare. And got a benefit.
Yep, we did. And that was greatly reliant on the efforts of the board. I appreciate your leadership.
We are still negotiating healthcare. With union contracts coming up now, we're negotiating 2 union contracts that will take effect in 2026. So if we find savings in the healthcare there, that'll be carried over to 2027. So everything's still fluid. With our biggest expenses are healthcare and 911 and the person. But
2 questions if I might. So the 4.1 is that with the proposed number by Tim with the 10% second vote? Is that?
That was my recommendation.
Okay. And then do we know what the balance is after the usage of the unassigned fund? What the remaining balance is?
The remaining unassigned fund balance will be approximately 15 million.
Remaining, right? Okay, thank you.
But there's savings we'll see in 2026, but we can't project into this budget. Because until they're real, we can't figure them into this. But there is stuff that's gonna transpire over 2026. That comes like the healthcare savings, when we have more savings in the healthcare, we made some changes to the actuary, but we don't have those numbers for now. So when over 2026, if they're savings, their cash that we're not expending. So we're trying to figure all this in. And this also has the fire school.
Yes, it does.
Budget.
Yes, it does.
Which, if we get the funding for that, then we're anticipating 2 grants. And the LSA grant or the RCAP grant. Then that won't be realized in this budget. There's 3.7 million, 3.75.
3.7 million.
3.7 million, I think, for the fire school in here. But we had to plug a number into it, so to see what if we get the grants and that money won't be paid. But that'll come off the top too. Do you know what I'm saying?
2 million of that already guaranteed.
We had 2 million to build. The whole total project now with updates is 5.7.
5.7. Right.
So we have 2 million now, we have $1 million in ARP money,
Right.
3. So we're 2.7 that we put in for RCAP, LSA, and Appalachian Regional grants. We won't know if we get that until mid-2026. So we had to put a number in for the fire school, and then if we get those grants, then that'll offset that too, then going into 2027. So, is there any other questions on the budget?
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Nice work.
Thank you.
It was an interesting year to do a budget.
Yes, it was.
Can I have a motion to adopt the preliminary budget resolution 11-19-25?
Motion to adopt resolution 11-19-25.
Second.
On the question?
Commissioner Fedora,
Yes.
Commissioner Heatherington,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Anthony Carey.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. In Children and Youth, we have the transfer of Amber Wolf, County Caseworker 2 from County Caseworker 1 Domestic Relations. The rate is for the contract, and that is 23.0551, effective 12/1/25. One informational item in domestic relations, promotion of Cody Stetson to Case Officer 1. Rate is 22.55 per the contract. Stetson's coming from the Case Officer A. That's effective 12/1/25. All appointments pending drug test and physical where appropriate. All actions involving salary or for positions being created are pending salary board approval. That is all.
Okay, any new business?
Sir.
Salary board, report of executive sessions?
None.
Public comment for salary board?
Melinda Diver, North Manheim Township. Okay, one thing I would like to stress. We only heard, I can't remember the exact number, but 6,000 something appeals. Okay. Part of the problem is, folks, I think a lot of people do not realize about the homestead exemption. And we were able to pick up on a lot of those during the appeal process. But part of that problem is we could only point that out to those homeowners who actually appealed and came before us. And we would be looking at the screen and we would see an N there, which meant no, that they were not availing themselves of that tax exemption or for the county, that $20,000 in property value that would not be taxed. So I think we did pick up a lot of homeowners during the appeals process, but I'm not sure if there is another modality or strategy that we could use so that homeowners.
So the law,
That's a school year, doesn't it?
the law requires that school districts do an invitation letter every year to people who are not in Homestead. And those letters, that data was just sent this week to the vendor that the school districts use. So all of those ends not approved for Homestead that aren't commercial in nature, and have a house on it, not approved, not vacant land isn't eligible. They will get a letter from the school districts around the end of the year, and they will have until March 1st to enroll for next year's school and 27's county. So there could be another slug of Homestead enrollment, and we encourage people, if you're a resident of the county, take advantage of this. You're leaving money on the table. Schools give it. It's gambling money, pays for it for schools. If your primary residence is in this county, you should sign up for Homestead. But they're all actually going to get a letter. I would encourage the media to promote that as those letters are coming out during the January, February enrollment window.
Because what we were hearing when we would point that out to a homeowner and ask, is this your primary residence? Yeah. Okay, well, we see that you're not enrolled in the Homestead. And they said, oh, is that envelope or that thing that we get like at the end of the year? Oh, I thought that had to do with Farmstead. I said, Farmstead, Homestead, programs there. So I think there's a certain amount of just not realizing what it is. People get it, throw it in the trash. I would say probably, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's probably pretty high of homeowners who are taking advantage of that program. But in this day and age, every little bit helps. So, and then also.
House and Homestead free properties.
How many, Tim?
Over 35,000. We could look up the actual number.
Okay. And also a lot more people, yes, what according to Chrissy, over 600 people took advantage of the Clean and Green. So that was another thing. People did not realize, they didn't know it was available. What is this? So yeah, that a lot of people got enrolled in that. But again, it's only the people who appealed and came before us, and we were able to say, you have over 10 acres. Why aren't you in Clean and Green? What is that? Didn't know anything about it. Okay. Enough on that subject. I'll switch gears. I believe it was Coleridge Canary. I read an article in there and was talking about the city of Pottsville. And I guess they're considering or going to look into doing a towing rotation there. So one of the things that kind of concerns me is when you have a solicitor for a municipality and they're actually advising, well, let's just thumb our noses at the Sunshine Act and let's go ahead and see if we can't confer or have a little discussion with the incoming council members who won't be taking office until next year in January. Let's go ahead and talk to them and see where their thoughts are on this towing rotation. Cannot do that, right?
Isn't there, well, I'm not sure, but I believe there's a law that every municipality is supposed to have a towing rotation.
I don't know about
As
that.
far as I know, because there's lawsuits right now on some municipalities in our county because they exclude, and if you have a towing company within, like say your towing company's based in Pottsville, you're supposed, if you want to be on the towing rotation, you're supposed to be allowed to be on the towing rotation. Like I actually think there's a law that requires, well, you're supposed to have a towing rotation.
I don't know about that. My main issue is, and I believe the solicitor is Ed Brennan. Is it Ed Brennan for the city of
I
Pottsville.
believe so.
So they're gonna have two new council members, Scott Price and Jonathan Marsh, are going to be sworn in. And essentially, he was saying, well, let's talk to them first and kind of see where their thoughts are on with this towing rotation before you have me go ahead and research everything and start looking into it and changing our ordinances or whatever. Sunshine Act dictates that any sort of discussion of current business or what could become current business has to be done at a public meeting. So in other words, he was essentially saying, oh, yeah, let's not wait around on all of that. Let's go ahead and ask these guys to make a decision now. They haven't been sworn in yet. They're not council members. And let's do it outside of a public meeting. No can do. I'm sick and tired of this kind of stuff happening. It needs to be discussed and brought up at a public meeting, not behind closed doors. I'll get off my soapbox now. Thank you.
Any other public comment for salary board? Jeff, you're sitting behind you. Lean over. Okay, we have to adopt the minutes from the previous meeting because we had no quorum. So can I have a motion to adopt the salary board minutes from October 22nd?
So moved, sir.
Okay. On the question?
Commissioner Fedora,
Yes.
Commissioner Heatherington,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Controller Yekenship.
Yes.
Can I have a motion to approve the salary board minutes from the work session of November 6th?
So moved, sir.
Second. The question?
Commissioner Fedora,
Yes.
Commissioner Heatherington,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Controller Yekenship.
Yes.
Human resource.
Nothing to report.
You business for salary board?
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, wait, hold on one second. Are you here for the proclamation? Yeah.
No, I was just here to listen for the
Oh,
budget.
oh, okay. Because we were supposed to have that one proclamation that they never showed up for. Oh, I don't know, so I thought maybe there was an extension, I was just curious if she was. Okay.